Because the message will be about the whole 2 chapters, but I'm going to highlight a few of these accounts, a few of these stories of our Lord for us today. So begin reading in Matthew chapter 8, verse 1. When he came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately he was cured of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, "See that you don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them." Matthew 8:18. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Another disciple said to him, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus told him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead." Verse 23. Then he got into the boat and his disciples followed him. Without warning, a furious storm came upon the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." Verse 28. When he arrived at the other side of the region of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. "What do you want with us, Son of God?" they shouted. "Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" Some distance from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, "If you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs." He said to them, "Go." So they came out and went into the pigs. And the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went into the town, and reported all this, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus. And when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. Chapter 9, verse 1. Jesus stepped into a boat, crossed over, and came to his own town. Some men brought to him a paralytic lying on a mat. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Take heart, son, your sins are forgiven." At this, some of the teachers of the law said to themselves, "This fellow is blaspheming." Knowing their thoughts, Jesus said, "Why do you entertain evil thoughts in your hearts? Which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up and walk'? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." Then he said to the paralytic, "Get up, take your mat, and go home." And the man got up and went home. When the crowd saw this, they were filled with awe, and they praised God who had given such authority to men. Chapter 9, verse 14. Then John's disciples came and asked him, "How is it that we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them. Then they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved." Verse 23, chapter 9. When Jesus entered the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the noisy crowd, he said, "Go away, the girl is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took the girl by the hand, and she got up. News of this spread throughout that region. And then verse 27 through 31. As Jesus went on from there, 2 blind men followed him, calling out, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." When he had gone indoors, the blind men came to him, and he asked them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" "Yes, Lord," they replied. Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith will it be done to you." And their sight was restored. Jesus warned them sternly, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him all over that region. God's word for us this morning, amen? Amen. Jesus is doing some remarkable things. In fact, if you'll take a brief look at the screen real quickly. Oops, screen wanted to go away. We'll notice this morning that Matthew here is kind of picking up where he left off in Matthew chapter 4, verse 23. And there we learned and read that Jesus went throughout the Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. And I don't know if you remember or not, but when we talked about that several months ago, we understood that Matthew was kind of giving us a preview of what was going to be happening the rest of the way in his gospel that he was writing for us. And so in Matthew 5 through 7, we read about Jesus' teaching. All right, Matthew is not necessarily concerned with when and how the timing of everything occurred. There are times when he is, but overall he's concerned with kind of giving us chunks of this is what all of this means. And so Matthew 5 through 7, the Sermon on the Mount, is kind of a gathering of much of Jesus' teaching during his time in ministry. And so we've done Matthew 5 through 7, and now we're looking at Matthew 8 and 9. And Matthew 8 and 9 is where Matthew is fleshing out for us. Oops, one more back. Matthew 8 and 9 is where he's fleshing out the healing every disease and sickness amongst the people. Go ahead and click to the next slide there. And in doing so, he is showing some signs of the Messiah. Okay, as we look at and read Matthew chapter 8, verse 1, we hear and read about Jesus touching and healing this man of leprosy, cleansing him. Okay, and this is referring, as we see it later on in the chapter as well, referring back to fulfilling prophecy, but it's also highlighting something that we'll see in Matthew chapter 11, verse 5. The blind receive sight, we just read about that. The lame walk, just read about that. And those who have leprosy are cured, just read about that. The deaf hear, the dead are raised, we just read about that as well. And the good news is preached to the poor. And so Matthew is highlighting different signs that, yes, this Jesus of Nazareth, he is the Messiah. He is your king, which is the point of this book. The whole reason Matthew was writing this gospel was so that the Jewish people who are new disciples or are going to be disciples, hopefully by reading the book, understand who their Savior really is and how he fulfilled everything that the Scriptures taught about the Messiah. And so he even fulfills prophecy. Isaiah 53, the first part of verse 4 there. Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Infirmities, the suffering of health and sickness and disease, and the suffering of even the demonic possession and such. And I think there's one more slide there. Isaiah 61:1, which we're going to get to when we talk about John the Baptist in Matthew 11 as well in a couple of weeks. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news. We've seen him do that, and he'll do that more. He's also sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, those who are suffering, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, those who are enslaved by Satan. And so we see Jesus fulfilling all of these things. In fact, that is Jesus' response to John the Baptist, who was later going to say, "Are you really the one who was to come?" Because they're starting to see now that there's not exactly what they thought. And Jesus says, "Yes, I am. Think about these things. The blind receive sight. People are cured. The demons are cast out. The Messiah is here. I am he." And so in Matthew chapter 8 and 9, Matthew is showing us the king's authority. But he's showing it, it's putting it on display. Jesus put his authority on display for the world to see. And I love the song that Amy just sang for us earlier because it was like all these people who afterwards, it's kind of like what happens after they got healed and cleansed and all this kind of stuff. And so Jesus' authority, his power was put on display, and everybody goes and shares it, which is a good thing, but also not such a good thing at the same time. And so we see that Jesus has authority. Jesus possesses absolute authority in this world and warrants absolute allegiance from the world. That's the point of Matthew 8 and 9. He has absolute authority. Everything in the universe obeys Jesus. And the question Matthew gives to us is, do you? Everything obeys Jesus. Do you? And we see this displayed where Jesus has authority over disease. We read a couple of passages here in Matthew 8 and 9 where we see Jesus having authority, having power over disease. We read some of them, and hopefully you can go back and read the others that we didn't get to. But a couple things that I want us to see out of all of these healing stories, healing accounts here, is that Jesus is willing to heal people. And he's not just willing to heal them, but he's willing to do so based on their faith or the faith of others on their behalf, as the man who was brought on the mat by the 4 friends. That's that story in Matthew 9:1. His ability to do so. They believed that he was able to. And I love what it says here in Matthew 8:3. Jesus reached out, 8:2. Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And Jesus said, I'm willing. And he was made clean. And did you catch what he said to the 2 blind men? Do you believe that I'm able to do this? And said, yes, we know that you are able to do this. The question is not necessarily, can he heal? But the question is, will he heal? And this is a big deal for us, even in our day and age. Because I don't know about you, but I often read these stories and I'm like, man, and especially the stories of the apostles, where, get up and walk, and they got up and walked, they walked through the streets, and people were in their shadow, they were healed just by being in the shadow of the apostles. It's like, Lord, why don't we see that today? Why don't we, when we pray for healing from cancer or whatever it might be, why don't we see people healed? And I think what Matthew is trying to share with us, and other scriptures are trying to share, is it's not can he heal, it's will he heal. Jesus knows what is best for us. And healing is not always what's best for us. And that's hard to accept, especially when we see loved ones suffer. When a pastor goes to see somebody in the hospital, knowing that this is hard. They're just going through so much. Lord, just healing, just get it over with so that they don't have to go through this. But God knows what's best for us. And everything he does for our good. He allows it for our good. Our best is not always comfort or an easygoing life. What is best for us is that we know and trust and serve the Lord, no matter what. Sometimes suffering is what brings us to where God wants us to be. He's in the process of shaping us to be like his Son, fully dependent upon God. For our family and our friends who suffer, we pray for them, and we should. We do pray that they would be healed. We do that. Ask that God would heal them. But we also pray knowing that God is God, and he has a plan. And we need to let him know that we trust him in his plan, whether he heals them or not. And pray that those who are suffering would accept that truth as well. And I'm not trying to be callous. I'm not trying to make light of suffering of others. I'm trying to present what I believe the scriptures are teaching us. Pray for all to accept and trust in the ways of the Lord. It's difficult to see a loved one suffer. We ask for healing. But we know, God, you have a plan. You know what you are doing. Help us to accept it and allow you to work in our lives. Through these healing accounts, we also see that Jesus heals regardless of social status, gender, wealth, age, or sinfulness. We're not told that these guys were followers of Jesus later on. We're not told, if they were religious Jews and had faith in God and the covenant and all that. We don't know that. We just know that Jesus saw a need. There was faith in him from those people who had that need, and he responded, showing his authority, teaching them and teaching us who he is, who God is. We see that he can heal with a touch, with a word, or in the case of the woman with the blood disease, even incognito. He didn't do anything. She reached out in faith and touched his garment, and she was healed. Faith. He brings those who were cast out, those who were on the fringes because of their suffering, because of their needed cleansing and healing, and he brings them back in, and he restores them into society, restoring their relationship with God, hopefully, and with, of course, and also with family and society. And through it all, faith is the necessary component. The two blind men knew Jesus and knew who he was despite their blindness. I love this story. Go and listen to what the blind men can tell you what they saw. That's great. Their disability did not keep them from understanding and knowing that Jesus is Messiah. And they seek him out. They know who he is. They say, Son of David. That's a messianic title. We haven't seen that since Matthew chapter 1 and 2. Son of David. They know who he is, and they have their faith in him that he can do what they ask him. And he does. He moves. Healing. It's a picture of what forgiveness is as well, and what forgiveness can do. It can heal our souls and bring us back into fellowship with each other and fellowship with our Heavenly Father. And so the connection between healing and forgiving in Matthew chapter 9 there, that man who was brought to them, the paralytic. Jesus is willing to forgive. Faith in him is always at the core of forgiveness. It's at the core of everything that Jesus does. It's faith in him. Jesus gets to the root of the problem, though. And he shows the Pharisees, he shows everyone there, the root of the problem is not the disease. That's just a symptom of the real problem. The real problem is sin. All of our suffering is either a result of my sin, your personal sin, the sins of others, or the curse that has come upon this world because of sin. This world is fallen. It's not what God had created it to be initially. Yes, it's still beautiful, still bears the marks of much of what God had at the original creation. But it's fallen from where it could be, where it should be. And so Jesus came to deal with the root problem. We see as he talks to the Pharisees at Matthew's house party, he's like, the sick need a doctor. I've come to call sinners to repentance. I've come to save people from their sins. Sin in this world is the cause of all of our suffering, either directly due to our own choices or the decaying world around us due to the curse. So Jesus identifies with humanity in and through his healings. He touches people that should not have been touched. It was bad. It was wrong for anyone to touch someone who was unclean. The man with leprosy, he was never supposed to be touched because that's how leprosy spread. That's how many of the skin diseases spread. The blind men, others, they were considered to be sinful, and there was judgment. Their sickness was judgment. Jesus did not see it that way. He saw a person in need, and he reached out and he touched those that nobody else would touch. He takes upon himself the cause of our suffering, our sin, and he dies on the cross, taking it away, that anyone who believes in him would not perish. Jesus is an equal opportunity healer and an equal opportunity forgiver. If we seek the opportunity that we're given to seek forgiveness and take it, we can be forgiven. Just as any can be healed, so can anyone be forgiven. They will place their faith in Christ. So we see Jesus has authority over disease. He heals. He forgives sin. He also has authority over disciples. And because of that, he expects complete surrender. 3 men come to Jesus, and they're talking about wanting to follow him. But he's like, I don't even have a place to sleep at night. At least not one that is guaranteed. I don't have a home to go to. He's trusting in God to provide for him. He's teaching them and teaching us that being a disciple of Jesus is not always the most secure thing according to the way of this world. Our trust and faith is in Jesus and in what he provides for us. When we follow Jesus, we do so at great cost. We don't know if tomorrow we're going to lose everything. But yet we still have Jesus. Is that enough? The man who comes and says, let me go and bury my father. The man's father wasn't even dead yet, because if he was, he would be with his father. He's saying, Lord, let me live my family life. Let me experience all of this. And then when my father finally dies, my family responsibilities are done, then I will come and I will follow you. Well, that could have been 30 years later. 10 years later, 5 years later. Jesus is like, no. The things of society will take care of themselves. You follow me. And I think that's a lesson for us, especially in comfortable America. We are so blessed. It's so easy. We think of, what am I going to do? We've got things so planned out, but is following Jesus the priority? If we lose everything because of an election or because of war, would we still follow Jesus? Or would we walk away and try to find our safety and security somewhere else? There is a cost to being a Christian. And Jesus, whenever people say, hey, I'm going to come and I'm going to follow you, he doesn't say, oh, hey, it'd be great, let me help you to do that. No, he says, understand how difficult it's going to be. More people turned away from Jesus because of Jesus' ministry than turned to Jesus because of Jesus' ministry at times. Because he was upfront and honest with the absolute truth of complete surrender. And I think we forget that at times. Sometimes we share the gospel, somebody asks us, why would I want to be a Christian? Well, because God is so wonderful and he loves you and he'll give you so many blessings and eternal life and all of that. And do we ever share with them the fact that it could cost them everything? Do we understand that it could cost us everything? Jesus expects absolute surrender to him and absolute trust in him. It is the only way to be a true disciple. Matthew shows us that it is worthy and worth it. Jesus is worthy, and it is worth it to give up everything to follow Christ. Our wealth, our security, our peace of mind in this world, we find that all truly in Jesus. Matthew understood following Jesus is about joining God on his mission to save sinners. Matthew gave up a lucrative career. He was a rich man. He was a tax collector. And he walked away from it to follow Jesus. He gave a party. He invited all of his friends to come to hear about Jesus and to see Jesus. We get that famous passage there. Jesus says, I've not come. Where does he say it? It's right here. Calling of Matthew. It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. That even as we completely surrender to Christ, we have and can be hopeful and rejoice. There's hopeful rejoicing as a disciple of Jesus. It's a tremendous honor, it's a privilege, and it is a great responsibility. It is the greatest adventure we could ever live. While there are times when we wonder, what's Jesus up to? I don't understand this. There's always an opportunity for great rejoicing, even in the midst of sorrow. How often are we told through the apostles' teachings in the New Testament, rejoice always. Even, Paul, he's in jail and he's writing to people to rejoice. How can you say that apart from being in Christ and knowing our Heavenly Father, having that assurance? Being a disciple is a tremendous honor. The disciples were questioned. Jesus was questioned by other disciples, wondering, why don't they fast? Why don't they do what we do? And Jesus is like, because I'm here. That's essentially what he's saying. God is here. But he says the bridegroom, he's referring back to Old Testament teachings where God refers to himself as the bride and his people as himself as the bridegroom and his people as the bride that he takes care of. We are the church, Jesus' bride. He is the bridegroom. They were rejoicing at that time because Jesus was there with him. With them. We rejoice because he's with us now through the Spirit, through the Word. But yet we're fasting at the same time, looking forward to that time when we will be with Jesus face to face. They didn't fast like other disciples did because Jesus was there. They didn't need to. And they rejoiced in that. They looked forward to that. They didn't quite get it yet, but they will. And they will rejoice. Yet even then as now, we can rejoice because Jesus is always with us. Jesus came to save sinners. And in the process, he's transforming the old way of doing things and bringing in something new, which isn't really new. It's a part of the old, but it's a transformation of the old into something of what it was supposed to be, the completed Scriptures. And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about old wineskins and patches. He's like, I've come to complete. And I'm also at the same time to transform that which has been out of sync, out of what it was supposed to be. That's the idea of new wine into new skins. He's preparing people to receive him, to change them spiritually, and in some cases physically, so that they can be fully surrendered to him, knowing that he is always with us, even to the end. And so again, we see over and over in these chapters, faith in Jesus' authority that's on display for all to see, leading disciples to give their full allegiance to him, knowing that Jesus can and will take care of them, and he will take care of us. And so, as we wrap this up, we see that Jesus has authority not over disease and disciples, but also over disasters, demons, and death. I love this story here in Matthew 8:23. Jesus and the disciples on the sea. The waves are crashing over, and the disciples are freaking out. I'd be freaking out. Raise your hand if you would be scared if you were in that boat, okay? I don't always like boats. You know, I got used to it over the years. But I used to be afraid to even swim, you know, out of the deep end and stuff. You know, water and I don't mix, okay? And I never want to be out on the lake or the ocean during a big storm, all right? It's just nothing I want to do. Now, yeah, my faith is weak. I'm working on that. God's working on that with me as well. But the key thing about this story is not the storm. The key thing about this story is who was in the boat. We got disciples who are freaking out. We got Jesus who's fast asleep. Is Jesus worried? No, because he knows that he will complete his mission. There's nothing that's going to stop him. And if Satan's behind this whole storm thing, and the storms happen in the Sea of Galilee all the time. It just happens. Jesus knows that his Heavenly Father is going to take care of him. He doesn't need to worry about anything. The key about this story is what the disciples say. Who is this man that even the winds and the waves obey him? Jesus is with them in and through the story. And the point of the story is that Jesus is with you and me through our storms. Regardless of what that might look like, health-wise, financial-wise, you know, whatever relationship situation that might be, God is with you through that storm. And that is really the most important thing. It's not that we don't get the storm. Yeah, we don't always want to go through them. Some are harder than others. But Jesus is with us there. We can trust him to take care of us through that storm. Because even if we should die because of that storm, what do we lose? We lose nothing. We get to be with God forever. And our testimony of being with Jesus through that storm can help others to see that, yes, following Jesus is worth it. Jesus has authority over nature. And it's in his power that we trust and rest. Not only does Jesus have power over nature, but he has it over the forces of darkness as well. How many times in these passages, and there's one at the end where Jesus is even accused of being the prince of demons. I mean, come on. The demons tremble at his voice, and yet they obey. Their understanding of who Jesus is led them to great fear. Did you catch that in that story? Our understanding of Jesus should lead us to great faith. There's nothing in the universe that should frighten us because we belong to Jesus. More than conquerors, Paul says. There's nothing that can stand in our way when Jesus is with us and when we're with him. We're reminded that Satan is on a leash. Don't you love that? He's a big cat, but you know what? There's a big leash and there's a big God behind it. Satan can do nothing that God does not allow him to do. And I don't quite understand how all of that works. but God is in control. Satan is defeated. He was defeated at the cross, and his day of destruction is coming. And you can say amen to that. Amen. The day of death being defeated. Jesus has power over death. He takes this girl by the hand and he lifts her up. He touched a dead body that was inconceivable to the Jewish people. You don't do that because then you're unclean. But Jesus is so clean that death doesn't even hold him down. Jesus has power over demons. He has power over Satan. He has power over death. All of our enemies are defeated. Except for maybe the enemy within our own selves, because we don't trust as much as we could. His resurrection gives us life. His crucifixion gives us forgiveness, eternal life. His resurrection proves it, gives us the power for life. Proves he is the Messiah, guarantees our resurrection as well. We have nothing to lose as disciples because Jesus has all authority. So as we wrap this up, as we close, a couple of things that we need to understand, as you can see there in your notes. Do we understand how much fear and respect Jesus is owed? I mean, do we understand that a man who can touch and heal, that a man, and yes, I do mean God-man, but a man who can touch and heal, a man with the word can heal, a man who can command the demons to do his bidding, that is a man that we should greatly fear. And by that I mean respect. Not cower in a corner, but he deserves our ultimate respect. He is holy and just, and he will do what's right. But he's also good. He's also loving and compassionate and caring. He took our infirmities upon himself because he loves us. He wanted to take that away from us, and the only way to do that was by giving his own life, taking it upon himself, so that he could give us his holiness and righteousness and eternal life. Do we understand how much Jesus expects, demands of us as our King, as our Lord, as our Savior? Everything in the universe obeys Jesus fully and without delay. The question is, do I? Do we? He's a God who forgives. And we need it every day. Because we do often fail to obey. But he's a good God. He loves us. He cares for us. He has great authority. We have nothing to fear. Let's trust him. Let's be on his side this morning and throughout this week. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for these wonderful, we call them stories, but they're not made up stories. These are true stories. Your Son moving and acting and working to reclaim your creation, to bring sinners into your kingdom. We thank you for the power that you have given and authority that you have given your Son. We thank you, Lord Jesus, for your love for us, that you went to a cross. You suffered and died for us. I pray that if there are any that are here this morning who have never heard that, never accepted that, never surrendered to that truth, who need to be assured of that truth, that they would seek you this morning and walk out of here knowing that they have power and strength in you, that you are with us through the storms, that you can heal, that you have a greater plan. We don't always understand it. Help us to trust in it and to walk in it. Help us to know that with you by our side, there is nothing that can defeat us. All these things for those who are in Christ. Help us to go this week and to have the courage to share the gospel. Help us to go to love those that others do not love. Help us to love others that don't think that we will love them because we are Christians. Help us to show the true light of your salvation and of your kingdom. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.